There has never been a better time to own a home. The average house is cleaner than a palace from 500 years ago. It has electricity, running water, climate control, comfortable beds, private bathrooms, and enough entertainment to fill a lifetime. And yet, more people than ever describe going home with a strange feeling they struggle to explain. Not unsafe, not uncomfortable, just empty. It's a feeling that appears after a long day when you finally step inside. Everything is exactly where you left it. Nothing is wrong, but something feels missing. So you turn on the television, or music, or YouTube, not because you were planning to watch anything in particular, but because silence somehow feels heavier than sound. This isn't just happening to people who live alone. Families feel it too. Parents retreat into separate rooms. Teenagers disappear behind closed doors. Couples spend evenings together while looking at different screens. Everyone is home, yet somehow nobody feels completely asterisk at home. We often blame ourselves. Maybe we're too busy, maybe we're addicted to technology, maybe modern life is simply stressful. Those explanations aren't entirely wrong, but they miss something much older. Because the strange feeling inside many modern homes didn't begin with smartphones. It began centuries before electricity existed. The house you call home today would have been almost unrecognizable to nearly every human who ever lived. Not because it lacked comfort, because it contained something history quietly removed, and once you notice what disappeared, you start seeing it everywhere. For almost all of human history, going home did not mean entering a building. It meant entering people. Long before cities, mortgages, and front doors, home was wherever your group stopped moving. A cave, a circle of huts, animal skin tents, wooden longhouses, the materials changed. The feeling rarely did. Because home wasn't defined by walls, it was defined by constant human presence. Imagine finishing a day's work 30,000 years ago. You wouldn't walk into an empty room. You couldn't. Someone would already be cooking. Children would be playing nearby. Elders would be repairing tools. Someone else would be telling a story everyone had heard dozens of times. Not because it was new, because rituals matter more than novelty. Even silence wasn't solitary, it was shared. And when night came, people rarely slept alone. Anthropologists studying traditional hunter-gatherer societies have found that communal sleeping arrangements were common across many cultures. Entire families, or even multiple families, often rested within the same shelter, surrounded by familiar sounds: breathing, movement, whispered conversations, babies crying, the crackling of a fire. Privacy, as we understand it today, was incredibly rare. To us, that sounds exhausting. To them, complete isolation would have felt far stranger. Because for hundreds of thousands of years, another person's presence wasn't an interruption, it was reassurance. Your brain learned something simple: if you could hear other humans nearby, you were probably safe. Being alone wasn't peaceful, it was dangerous. A single person separated from the group faced predators, exposure, injury, and starvation. Evolution didn't just reward intelligence, it rewarded staying connected. Over thousands of generations, our nervous systems became finely tuned to the presence of other people, not as entertainment, as survival. Then agriculture arrived, people stopped wandering, villages formed, homes became permanent. But something surprising happened. Even after humans built houses, life stayed remarkably communal. Early homes were often crowded, multifunctional spaces. Cooking, crafting, eating, childcare, and work all happened within a few shared rooms. Doors were frequently open. Neighbors drifted in and out. Extended families lived together. Daily life spilled into courtyards, village squares, and common wells. The boundary between my life and everyone else's life was far softer than it is today. You almost never needed to arrange social interaction. It happened automatically. Fetching water wasn't just a chore, it was where conversations happened. Grinding grain wasn't solitary. People worked side by side. Cooking wasn't performed for one household hidden behind closed walls. It often involved entire communities. Even boredom looked different, because someone was almost always nearby, not to entertain you, simply to exist alongside you. Centuries passed, empires rose and fell, but one pattern remained astonishingly stable. Home wasn't designed to maximize privacy, it was designed to maximize connection. In medieval Europe, workshops were often part of the home. Apprentices, relatives, customers, and neighbors moved through the same spaces. In many parts of Asia, Africa, and the Middle East, extended families lived together across generations. In countless indigenous societies, child-rearing wasn't the responsibility of two parents, it belonged to the wider community. Different cultures, different architecture, the same invisible principle: a home was never just where you slept, it was where life continuously happened. Then, over just a few centuries, humanity performed one of the fastest social experiments in its entire history. We redesigned the meaning of home. Not intentionally, not all at once, but through thousands of small decisions that seemed to make life easier. Each one solved a problem. Together, they transformed one of the oldest human experiences on Earth. And without realizing it, they changed what it feels like to walk through your own front door. The change didn't happen because humans suddenly decided they valued privacy. It happened because the world around them changed first. And once the world changed, home had to change with it. The first domino wasn't architecture, it was work. For thousands of years, home and work were the same place. A farmer walked outside, a potter worked beside the house, a weaver spun cloth in the next room, a baker lived above the bakery. Children didn't wonder where their parents disappeared every morning. They watched them work. Neighbors drifted in, relatives helped. Work wasn't separated from life, it was asterisk life. Then came the Industrial Revolution. Factories didn't simply introduce machines, they introduced something far more revolutionary: a reason to leave home. For the first time in history, millions of people traveled somewhere else every day just to earn a living. That sounds ordinary now. At the time, it was one of the most radical reorganizations of human life ever attempted. Home stopped being where production happened. It became where workers recovered. The building hadn't changed, its purpose had. And once work left the home, many of the people who filled it every day left too. Factories needed labor, cities exploded. Families left villages where everyone knew everyone and moved into places where nobody knew anyone. For centuries, if your roof collapsed, your neighbors probably helped rebuild it. If you became sick, people already knew. If a child wandered away, half the village recognized their face. Cities offered opportunity, but they quietly dissolved something else. You could suddenly spend years surrounded by thousands of people without belonging to any of them. Paradoxically, humans had never lived so physically close together, yet emotionally, many had never been further apart. Then another domino fell, land became expensive, cities became crowded, homes became smaller. Rooms acquired specific purposes: one room for sleeping, one for eating, one for guests, eventually, one room for every person. Today, having your own bedroom feels like progress, and in many ways it is. Privacy protects dignity, it allows rest, it creates personal space. But every gain carries a trade-off. For almost all of human history, being alone was unusual. Now it became the default. Without realizing it, architecture began teaching a new habit: retreat. Not because families loved each other less, because the house itself encouraged separation. Walls don't just divide rooms, they divide routines. Then came one of the biggest transformations of all: the suburb. For centuries, daily life happened within walking distance: markets, schools, friends, workshops, town squares. You encountered people almost accidentally. Modern suburbs optimized something different: space, safety, quiet, a private yard, a private driveway, a private life. The dream was independence, and for millions of families, it was a dream fulfilled. But independence has an invisible side effect. The more your daily life depends on private spaces, the fewer shared spaces remain. Something remarkable happened. Humans became better protected from strangers, while interacting with strangers less than ever before. Then technology entered the living room. The fireplace had once been the center of the home. People faced each other. They talked, argued, told stories, passed time together. The television quietly rotated everyone's attention 90 degrees. Now everyone faced the same direction. Conversation slowly gave way to observation. Families were still together, but they were no longer interacting in quite the same way. Nobody planned this. Television didn't destroy family life. It simply gave silence something to compete with. Then the screen became personal. One television became 4, then 8. Today, every member of the household carries an entire world in their pocket. The strange thing isn't that technology isolates us. It's that it replaced something that had already been disappearing for centuries. The phone didn't invent private lives, it perfected them. It allowed every room to become its own universe. Look closely at a modern evening. No one is arguing, no one is unhappy, everyone is occupied. Yet almost nothing is shared, not the stories, not the laughter, not even the boredom. Each person is somewhere else, while sitting only a few feet apart. None of this happened because humanity made one catastrophic mistake. Each change solved a genuine problem. Factories increased productivity, cities created opportunity, private bedrooms offered dignity, suburbs brought safety, television entertained, smartphones connected distant loved ones. Every step improved life in some important way. But together, those improvements quietly transformed the oldest social technology humans ever invented, home. It stopped being the place where life naturally unfolded with other people, and slowly became the place where each person could live an increasingly separate life. Which raises an unsettling question: if our homes have become more comfortable than ever, why do so many of us still walk through the front door, feeling that something essential never quite made it inside? There's an assumption hidden inside modern life. We think loneliness is about not having enough people. But for most of human history, that wouldn't have made sense. Because humans didn't schedule togetherness, they lived inside it. Today, almost every social interaction has become intentional. Are you free Friday? Let's grab dinner next month. We should catch up soon. Friendship has become something we manage. For our ancestors, it was something they inhabited. They didn't need to find community. Community was simply the environment. It's a little like asking a fish where it finds water. Think about what many of us do within the first minute of getting home. We switch something on: music, a podcast, the television. Not because we're desperate for entertainment, but because complete silence feels strange. Why? Because silence once meant something very different. For hundreds of thousands of years, an unusually quiet environment could signal danger. Whereas everyone has something happened, is the group gone? Our ancestors weren't listening for content, they were listening for presence. The crackle of a fire, someone coughing, children laughing, footsteps, conversations happening just beyond sight. Those ordinary sounds became part of what safety felt like. Today, many homes are acoustically perfect: thick walls, double-glazed windows, noise cancellation, privacy. We engineered away the very sounds that once told our nervous system, asterisk, you're not alone. Then there's another change we rarely notice. We still spend time near other people, but we're sharing fewer experiences. Anthropologists sometimes distinguish between being asterisk around others and doing things with asterisk others. For most of history, those two were almost inseparable. Cooking happened together, repairing tools happened together, watching children happened together, harvesting happened together, stories were told together, even waiting was often shared. Today, many of those activities have become individual experiences happening in parallel. We order separate meals, watch different shows, listen through different headphones, work in different rooms. Our lives overlap, they don't always intertwine. This may also explain one of the strangest contradictions of the modern world. Many people have never been more connected, and never felt more alone. Because connection and companionship aren't the same thing, you can receive hundreds of messages in a day. None of them can replace the quiet comfort of simply existing beside someone with no purpose at all. For most of human history, that purposeless togetherness filled ordinary life. Today, it's something we often have to plan. Even childhood changed. Children once belonged to neighborhoods, to cousins, to older siblings, to grandparents, to whoever happened to be nearby. Today, childhood is often carefully scheduled and closely supervised. Safer in many ways, more structured, more private, yet many children now grow up with fewer unplanned encounters than any generation before them. Something subtle disappears when every interaction has to be arranged. Spontaneity, and with it, a particular kind of belonging. None of this means the past was better. The old world carried hardships we would never choose: disease, violence, little privacy, grueling labor, short lives. We shouldn't romanticize it, but we shouldn't ignore what it gave us either. Because evolution doesn't erase hundreds of thousands of years of expectations in just a few centuries, our homes changed faster than our minds could, and perhaps that's why a perfectly comfortable house can still feel emotionally incomplete. Not because something is wrong with you, but because your brain is quietly comparing today's home with a version of home it spent countless generations learning to expect. Maybe we've been asking the wrong question. When we say, "I just don't feel at home," we usually look at the building. Should I move? Should I renovate? Should I buy a bigger place? But for almost every human who ever lived, those questions would have sounded strange, because home was never primarily a place. It was a pattern of familiar voices, shared routines, repeated faces, meals that stretched longer than necessary, children interrupting conversations, someone always awake before you, someone always arriving after you. Home wasn't defined by walls, it was defined by presence. Across thousands of years, the walls changed. Stone became wood, wood became brick, brick became concrete, the roofs changed, the furniture changed, the technology changed, but one thing remained remarkably constant: home was where life was shared. Only recently did we begin imagining that home could exist independently of the people inside it. Perhaps that's why buying a larger house doesn't always create a deeper feeling of belonging, because belonging was never something architecture could manufacture. It emerged from ordinary moments repeated over and over again, the kinds of moments so common in the past that nobody thought to preserve them. Look at a city after sunset. Behind every illuminated window is a different version of home. Some are loud, some are silent, some hold entire generations under one roof, others hold just one person. From the outside, they all look the same, but inside each one is a question humans have been answering for hundreds of thousands of years. Who do I return to? Not, where do I return? History didn't simply change our houses, it changed the meaning of arriving home. And perhaps that strange feeling so many people struggle to describe isn't a failure to appreciate what we've built. It's the quiet memory of something our species carried for millennia, a reminder that comfort and belonging were never